So every other music YouTube channel does it. Albums of the year. So Four Tracks Good is doing it. But we're doing it a little bit differently. Rather than just one person's list like everybody else does it, we are having two lists, one for Neil and one for myself. We like to do things a little differently around here, don't we, Neil?
Indeed, we do. And a little bit like our new Music Friday, well, I've no idea what's on your list, you don't know what's on mine. It'll be interesting to see if we've got the same records. And actually, it could be a very short episode if it turns out we have. A little
Yeah.
bit embarrassing. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
let's
could,
see what we've got.
yeah. Yeah. It could be either 10 or 20. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think there'll be a huge overlap. I think we discussed in the past there is a small intersect across our tastes, but let's see how it
Yeah.
goes this year. But I think it's been a great year for music. I don't know about you, pretty remarkable year. Some really innovative albums, some big names making comebacks. I think it's been good.
Yeah, yeah. I think it, I didn't think it was difficult to come up with a top 10. And I think what has struck me when I've read a number of magazines and online posts, actually the lack of agreement over what the best albums were, or certainly what the best album people regarded were. Um, so yeah, it's not been a year where there's been a useful, universal sort of coalescent around this is the landmark album, this is the best album of the year. So I think maybe it's a reflection of the general quality of
Yeah.
records that have been produced, and whether it's what are we seeing here? That is this a case of bands who during COVID couldn't record, couldn't tour, so maybe that's when they were building up that catalogue of songs,
Yeah.
which they
Possibly.
then went and recorded, during the course of 22, 23, and we've seen them release this year. Maybe we're just coming out of that period. I don't know, but yeah, there's certainly been some cracking albums that have come out, and looking forward to talking about them.
Yeah, and I thought that February and March time there was a whole host of albums came out, particularly female artists, the likes of Jessica Pratt, Hooray for the Riff Raff, Adrian Lenker, Nadine Shah, Julia Holter, Chelsea Wolfe, who was Kim Gordon as well. All that February March time, just all came out. These female artists, brilliant albums.
I wasn't mapping it by month. I have to tell you that. I wasn't
No, no. I just
analysing it that way.
recall it was particularly strong for female artists in those couple of months. So
Yeah,
who's to say any of those are on the list? We shall find out shortly.
yeah.
And yeah, do you want to kick off with your first choice?
Okay. The first one I'm going to go with is the fifth album, sixth album by Bill Ryder-Jones, Icky Dar. I mean, this features in a number of lists. I mean, I was surprised when the Guardian did their list; they didn't have it higher actually. I think it's his best album. It's I suppose, most complete in terms of the sound, in terms of his songwriting. I think I've said before when I've talked about seeing Bill Ryder-Jones live, there was a fragility to his performance, and I think there is in the songs. There are beautiful arrangements, um, and they're very heartfelt. And I've seen him twice already this year, and for me, that was the standout album of the year by some distance. I've got most of his stuff, and I think this is his best as well by a mile.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've listened to that a little bit. I mean, I was never a big fan of the choral, to be honest. And I haven't really looked at his other material until I saw it, kind of the reviews.
It
But some,
actually He's not choral-like. I
no,
think he
no,
deliberately tried to avoid, his first
yeah,
choral. His first album was actually a soundtrack to an Italian film, and I don't think there is that much of an overlap between the world he's created with his songwriting and that which you still see with the choral. Because, like you, I'm not the world's biggest choral fan
mm,
at all. But this
yeah,
is very different. It's a lot more
yeah.
tender.
Yeah, it's quite an uplifting album as well, considering I guess the material is
Yeah,
the background to it. So there's kind of quite rousing chorus. I think is there a children's choir in there
there
somewhere?
is.
And
There is.
yeah,
They're on a couple of his tracks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So my first album probably wins the longest album title on the list. So it's the new album by Shoo Shoo, 13-inch Frank Beltrame Italian stiletto with bison horn grips. Bit of a mouthful.
Mm.
I know I've played Shoo Shoo at a previous vinyl club, but this is probably one of their most accessible albums. As some of the experimentation, perhaps, of their previous stuff is not so heavy here, but the vocals, Jamie Stewart, just as weird, quite unsettling, quite as straightforward as Shoo Shoo get, perhaps, but still feels quite ambitious and with that bit of chaos in the mix as well. So yeah, if you're new to Shoo Shoo, this probably is the album to start with because they've got quite a big back catalogue. But yeah, that was my
Okay.
first choice.
Good. Well, my second choice, I've got it here, is another artist I've seen this year. That's the Lemon Twigs.
Yeah,
A Dream Is All We Know. And again, a bit like Bill Ryder-Jones, I think this is the culmination of their sound, really, of their previous albums. They clearly have an eye on classic sort of pop and rock of the sort of 60s and early 70s. That's a given, everyone knows that. But they're such brilliant songwriters and musicians, and wonderful live. It's just a fantastic collection of pop songs, really. So Lemon
yeah,
Twigs, highly recommended.
brilliant.
Okay.
So my next album, I've got it here. So it's spoken about it loads already. It's Night Rain by Aruj Aftab. I had the pleasure of seeing her live earlier in the year. She was amazing, and her band were amazing too. And the album, for those who haven't heard it, blends jazz, minimalism, South Asian classical influences, that sort of thing. But it's been probably my go-to album of the year for chilling out and relaxing to. It's one of those. It just puts me in another place. It's a beautiful kind of lush, intimate, emotional album. I just haven't got tired of listening to it. Yeah,
Yeah, great. I'm going to go my third one. It was actually a recommendation from Mina at Jacaranda, actually, from Australian band I hadn't come across previously. But I think it's the second album by Banana Gun. Why is the colour of the sky? Question mark. And actually, as I've said about the Lemon Twigs, that they've got a keen awareness of musical history. I think it's certainly the same with Banana Gun. I think they are sort of keen aficionados of bands like Love, um, and it's a great collection of songs, wonderful arrangements, quite intricate as well. Um, and I'm very grateful for that recommendation from Megan, actually, because that's a tremendous album in addition to my collection.
yeah. I think it was a bit of a coincidence. It's got a Beach Boysy feel to it,
Mm.
hasn't it? And the fact you're such a Beach Boys fan and you got recommended that
I know, I know.
worked out well.
I love
Yeah,
it when you get an album that you don't know anything about, not heard any of it before, and it turns out to be a belter. That's always satisfying. That was definitely the case with this one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, so my next album, I've got this one on vinyl too, and it is on a lot of end of year lists.
Yeah.
Lives Outgrown by Beth Gibbons, another beautiful album, and one that's really helped me through the year and allowed reflection, and it touches on some big themes: grief, loss, aging, life's transitions, heavy stuff, all against quite a rich textured instrumentation. Really, it's definitely not another Portishead album for sure, but it has that familiar air of familiarity around about it, and yeah, on a lot of lists, deservedly so.
Including my list.
We
We
found a match, our first
found one.
match.
I absolutely love this album, and it's not a Portishead album. It's not. I mean, it's not dissimilar, but it's not really a repeat of her Rustin Man album either, as well. I know that Rustin Man has gone off with Paul Webb in a slightly different direction, but it's not that for her. It's very different. The thing that I think is really interesting and curious about it is that through her most recent work, well, I say most recent, the past 15 years or so, she has actually played with two members of Talk Talk, two of the original members. Because obviously, Rusty Man, the first album was with Paul Webb, the bassist in Talk Talk, and a partner really on this album throughout all the tracks and arrangements and music, instruments, percussion, and production is Lee Harris, of course, who was the wonderful drummer in Talk Talk as well. And I think that's just really curious that she's
Yeah.
embedded herself in that scene as a huge Talk fan. But yeah, like you, I just thought that was brilliant. It's one of my favourite albums of the year.
Yeah, it was worth the wait. It's been a long time in the making, but
Definitely.
yeah, one to go back to. So that was
Yeah,
yours as well.
it
It's
is.
back to me now, then, is it?
It
Um,
is.
so my next one, I think I've got this one on vinyl as well. It's an album by someone called Mabe Fratty, and the album's Sentir Que No Sabes. So she's a Guatemalan cellist, vocalist. And I heard her last year. She did a collaboration on an album called Vidrio, which was which I absolutely love. So I was quite excited to hear her solo work on this album. Very much experimental side of things, quite lush instrumentation. Obviously cello, synths on there. I'd struggle to give it a category, to be honest. There's all sorts in there: jazz, pop, rock,
Yeah.
you name it. Yeah, whatever it is, I really loved immersing myself in this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. My next one is an album by a Manchester band called Co-Pilot, and the album is called Rotate, and it is a collaboration between, I think, certainly one of the staples of the Manchester, I call it psychedelic pop scene, Jim Noir, uh, and Jim Noir, sorry, and also Leonora Wheatley, who I believe was also in the International Teachers of Pop, who brought some of their stuff to Vinyl Club before as well.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a lovely, soft pop album. She's got an amazing voice, and I came across this by chance and absolutely loved it. And also, really interested in the fact that the cover art was filmed at the um, Avro Air Museum, which is in Woodford Poynton, which isn't very far away from where I live. Um, yeah, so that's a lovely album. Coppola. I didn't get a lot of attention. I don't see it reviewed anywhere, but I think it's well worth digging out from people.
all right. I haven't heard that one. I will check that one out. So my fifth choice is I've got the CD here, Neil. I know you're going to frown when
Oh,
I pull that out. Can't afford to buy everything on vinyl.
yeah.
So this is by the band Bonnie Light Horseman. It's called "Keep Me on Your Mind, See You Free." So Bonnie Light Horseman, American folk band. Yes, could call them a super group because they've got Ernest Mitchell, singer songwriter and Oh Right, Eric D. Johnson from the Shins, and Josh Kaufman from the National. And the last two albums, which were 2020 and 2022, I mean, I absolutely loved those. But on this one, I think the group have really gelled together, and I think it's probably my favorite of the three, to be honest. There's a little bit of experimentation in there, but it's mainly quite traditional folk instrumentation. Yeah, there's a lot of songs on the album. It's kind of 20 songs, but I don't think there's a dud one in there, in my view.
Wow.
But yeah,
Wow.
Bonnie Light
Oh,
Horseman.
well, that sounds well worth it. And on a similar theme there in terms of long albums. This one hasn't got 20 on. It's a double album. It is the first album, again by a supergroup, continuing that sort of theme. The Hard Quartet. For most people, they'll know it as an album featuring Stephen Malkmus, but also Matt Sweeney, Jim White, Emma Kelly make up that group. And so it had a lot of, I think, hype when it came out, actually, a lot of expectation. and it more than matches that actually. It's not hugely radical if you know much of the work of this group before. It's individuals, slacker guitar, um, but they're not seeking just to retread old ground. There's a great collection of songs there. I'm going to see them at Gorilla in June of next year, so I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, it's another one that's worth checking out. I mean, anything Steve Malcolm on it's definitely worth having a listen to. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I've had a little listen to that actually. There's a good mix of genres on there. There's kind of
Yeah,
a bit of power pop, prog,
yeah.
and a bit of punk kind of
There
stuff.
is, yeah.
It's a real good mix, and yeah, great guitar
It's
on
a
it.
genuine collective effort. It isn't just Steve Malcolm. It is, they're all sharing vocal responsibility. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
it works,
yeah,
as you said with yours. It works as a collective, definitely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, well, that's our first five each, one overlap. We're going to take a short break now. Whereas Neil got to go to the glamorous location of Hamburg, I went to perhaps a less glamorous hotspot, but nonetheless, I had a great day out. Let's see what I saw.
For reasons that I won't go into, I find myself in Stoke-on-Trent today. Stoke are famous for its pottery. I have a bit of a decision to make. I've got a bit of time to kill. Shall I visit the Potteries Museum, or shall I have a look at what Stoke has to offer in the vinyl store department? I've got a little while to walk into town, so I'll have a think about that decision and see where we get to. Well, I decided against the Potteries Museum and decided to check out a vinyl store in Stoke. And as you can see right behind me, we've got a Rubber Soul Records, and this is a vinyl shop like no other. As you can see by the photos I took inside, this isn't a vinyl shop where you're going to find everything categorized and easy to find. This is a shop where you have to work to find what you want. And don't go in expecting any sort of order. You've got to climb over things, root around, and really dig for it. This is what vinyl hunting's all about, and you don't get this very often these days. It's like the TK Maxx of vinyl shops. There's something in there for everyone. You've got to dig for it, and I did. I picked out some really nice stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed my visit to a Rubber Soul Records in Stoke. Encourage you to get down there.
Hi, I've just got back from a day out in Stoke, and I thought I'd run through the vinyl that I bought at Rubber Soul Records. So I picked up a few albums underneath all of the stacks there. I could have gone on all day, but I settled on these three. The first album is from alt-rock band Sports Team. It's called Deep Down Happy. This is from 2020. It's a picture disc, as you can see. Looks quite nice. And the next album I bought was called Pyramid, and that's from the 70s prog rock band, the Alan Parsons Project. So I look forward to listening to that soon. And the third album I bought, this is a really interesting LP. It's probably the pick of the bunch. It's a bit of a curio. I doubt you'll find this one on Spotify. It's an original pressing of the album called The Non-Such Guide to Electronic Music, which was released in 1968. Album is probably a loose term for this. There's only one actual composition on the album. The rest of the album is effectively educational material about electronic music, which was in the 60s, was obviously a very new genre. These two guys, Paul Beaver and Bernard Krause, put together a primer on how the Moog synth can be used. illustrated by the recordings on this album. So they went through each of the modules on the Moog and recorded them. There are all sorts of tracks on here called, I don't know, frequency modulation, control generators, tape delay. Oh, it's brilliant. When I say brilliant, it's probably not one I'm going to listen to too much, but the best thing about it is the booklet that comes with it. You see the booklet here, and it goes into detail on each of the tracks in there in technical detail, with diagrams and all sorts in there. It's quite an interesting read. And at the back of the booklet is we've got the score to the one composition that's on the album. This is what you call vinyl history. The booklet has that reassuring musty smell for something from the 1960s. Yeah, really good buys, and get yourself down to Rubber Soul Records if you find yourself in Stoke.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that, Gary. It's been a really interesting visit down to Stoke. Always fascinating to look at how different stores choose to sell their record wares. And yeah, it sounds like you had a really good visit there. And I think we were talking before that I used to live in Stoke for many years, and actually it was a scene of my band's probably most famous gig where we supported the band Silverfish, and my string went on my guitar, and the guitarist let me use his. So yeah, if you're around Stoke, the probably June 1991, yeah, you probably saw something reasonably okay, But there you go. So my next record is by, and I'll be honest, this is a band who I'd heard of but never heard, and I don't know why. This sometimes happens. But a friend of mine asked if I wanted to go and see the American band Nada Surf play, actually, again, at Gorilla a few weeks ago. And I did. And I really enjoyed listening to all their stuff. For me, it's in that sweet spot of something that's like power pop, but also might feature on Grey's Anatomy in some melodramatic moment, which is catnip for me. Absolutely loved it. It was a great gig. Bought their most recent album, Moon Mirror, signed. It was the last one they had. I really like it. Really, really like it a lot. So, yeah, they're large. They started in New York, but the lead singer, Matthew Cause, lives in Norwich, I think. The bassist, who's a school friend, is from Spain. They met at a French grammar school in New York, though, as well. And they've been together since the mid-90s. So, they've had 11 or 12 albums out, and that is one of the best, I would say. So, yeah, really enjoyed that. And if you've not heard Nada Surf, give them a listen.
Yeah, I had to listen to that when you told me about the gig. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Again, a bit of power pop in there. I think it sounded very much reminded me a bit of Matthew Sweet, some of the kind of melodies. And I did dig actually, and Matthew's Cause, he was actually in a super group called the Salt Collective that included Matthew Sweet. So there is kind of an overlap in style there, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. He also did an album. Can't remember what name they gave them, but with Juliana Hatfield as well, which I really want to dig out. But it's literate, heartfelt, guitar based pop. It's very, very melodic. Again, I don't know why I'd never really listened to that stuff before, but yeah, I've really immersed myself in the back catalogue since then.
Yeah, very good. So, what's up next for me? So, this one has been on a lot of end of year lists, and I don't think any end of year list should be without this album. It's Brat by Charlie XCX. And it's been my staple pop album of the year. I'm not exactly the biggest Charlie fan. I loved her album How I'm Feeling Now, that she recorded and released during COVID. But every track on this album could have been a lead single. I love the social commentary, the kind of big electronic sounds on it. Yeah, really enjoyed it. And I haven't the keen-eyed amongst you will notice I'm not holding up the actual album here. This is the remix album, which does include the original album as well. But at the risk of getting two for the price of one here, I actually think the remix album is as good as the original. It's got some really interesting collaborations on there, the likes of John Hopkins, Bon Iver, Shy Girl, Robin. Really good mix of people on there, and it's not just a remix; it's almost like a complete set of new songs, to be honest. But I still haven't really got used to the green black file. I know it's been a bit of an iconic album cover of the year, but it just didn't really do it for me. But it's probably the album on the list it's got a big personality, hasn't it? This, and it has been. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
The thing
album.
is, when I think of the words Brat Summer, you immediately come to mind, Gary. So I think it's really
Yeah,
apposite that you've chosen
yeah.
that one. Yeah.
What you
Uh,
got next?
but yeah, my next one is it's still on my shelf, actually. I haven't brought it to show. Is the latest album, probably the 123rd album or something like that, by Pet Shop Boys. Um, who again I've sort of saw them three times on the Dream World tour, including a very small intimate gig at Funny Girls in Blackpool a few months ago, which was amazing. Yeah, I don't like using the phrase a return to form because I don't really think they've produced a bad album. I think in feel it probably seems more like some of their earlier stuff, the first couple of albums. Um, it's produced by James Ford, this one, not by Stuart Price, who'd done the previous three. And so I think there is a different mood to it as well. But it is what you'd expect. It is a collection of intricately, carefully produced pop songs with very literate, thoughtful lyrics. And they probably will, whenever they release, it's going to be an end of year list. But I think, they're a band that people take for granted. And if somebody else had produced that album, I think it'd be even higher on the list as well, because we shouldn't overstate the quality of their oeuvre and the quality of their work. So yeah, I really, really, really enjoy that album.
Yeah, yeah. I get hats off to them. 40 years they've been going. It's incredible, isn't it? 40 years. Yeah. And I can't
Yeah,
believe Neil Tennant's 70 now.
I
Just
know.
just doesn't look 70, does he?
No, he doesn't, and I mean, he doesn't move around much on stage,
No.
granted, but he's still. And I don't know whether they've changed the key in which they sing their songs, and that's quite important because I think you will know I went to see Paul McCartney on Sunday. He still sings, I think, in the same key of all the original songs. It's some effort for someone who's 230. I don't know if Patrick Bush changed them, but yeah, he's. And I don't think this is the end of the road for them. I still think they're going to churn out stuff as
Yeah.
well. Chris Lowe's
Yeah.
65, I think. So yeah, they're getting on a bit, but if they're still producing
Yeah.
music of that caliber, fair enough.
Yeah. I have had a listen to it, and yeah, he's vocally sounds as good as he
Yeah,
did 40 years ago. Yeah, sounds brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, what's
What you
next?
can do. So next up for me, what have I got? I have got something a little bit more experimental, I guess. So it is Keely Forsyth. The album's called The Hollow. Another artist I've seen this year. It was an amazing performance and probably the driver for me to explore this latest album. To us, it's quite a raw, haunting album, bit like her a live performance. She's very theatrical when she does her performances. Very unique vocals, and these are going to set against organs, electronics, and strings. And there's even an appearance we've spoken about in the past. Colin Stetson's on there on one of the tracks, and his sax works really well with Forsyth's voice. So it's probably not the easiest album on my list to listen to, but it does get better. One of those gets better on every listen. Yeah, really
Okay,
enjoy
good. I
it.
have to check that out, definitely. My next one is and actually, there's a sort of local theme to some of these, but I believe she's based in Marple, Jane Weaver, Loving Constant Spectacle. Again, she's produced, she's got quite some back catalogue. But rightfully, the past 2 or 3 albums have seen her gain greater prominence, get greater attention, and this is. I mean, it's a beautiful album as well. A lot of it is sort of groove based. I mean, I think there is that. I think to a lot of her work, and people talk about sort of psychedelic elements, but I think the influence of that sort of German electronica, Kraftwerk, I think, come through strongly. So with this rhythmic element, repetition. She's got a great voice. She plays most of the things herself, self-produced, recorded here in Stockport. I saw her quite recently in Hebden Bridge, and it was just a stunningly good gig. It really was fantastic. Um, Even the raffle between her and the support act was worth seeing. So yeah, if that isn't in people's list, there's a serious problem, I think, with most because I think it's a great album. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
it, Jane Reed.
Yeah, I've had a listen to that one. I really enjoyed it as well. What was the last one called? I really like that. Was it Flock? Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
plot.
that. And yeah, but this one is, I don't know, there's bits of kind of krautrock in there. I
What
don't
I'm
know
saying,
if
yeah,
you've
there's
spot.
that
It's
German electronica.
yeah,
Yeah,
synth and yeah, really, really
I
good.
don't think we can call it krautrock anymore. So that's where I deliberately used German electronica.
Oh, is that? Oh, right. Is that
Yeah,
true? Okay. Anyway, the guitar's great on it as well, I have to say.
definitely, yeah, it is.
Guitar's really good. I'll be giving that a bit more of a listen.
Definitely.
So what's next on me? So next I've got an album by someone called Alva Noto, a German electronic artist called Carsten Nicolai. It's a lovely ambient drone, probably not your cup of tea, Neil, but it's been one of those albums I've had on the background since its release in the summer. It's got amazing production on it. It's a beautiful bit of work, to be honest. There's nothing groundbreaking on there. It's just lovely ambient electronic music, amazing production. Yeah, it's got a huge back catalogue as well to explore if you enjoy this album. So,
Yeah, I will have a look at that one. Where am I going next? Yeah. So this is one that has appeared in most lists, but I know it got great reviews when it came out. It is, I'm right in saying, technically the first solo album by former Pixie and Breeder and Amp Kim Deal with her album Nobody Loves You More. I think what she's able to do really well with this is keep hold of the essence of her songwriting that she's displayed in those bands before, but also take it somewhere else. Actually, in some cases, been a bit more tender and melodic as well. But this was an album I was really looking forward to, and it definitely paid off as well. And yeah, it's something again that it kind of works well for this time of year. I think actually it's one of those I think quite autumnal in its feel.
yeah, I've enjoyed this one too. Her vocal delivery sounds a bit different to what I've heard in the past. She reminded me a bit of Karen Dalton, the
Yeah.
'60s folk singer in parts, some of her songs. But yeah, quite a, I don't know, chilled and laid back vibe as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next up for me, I have the album Akama by Jlin, who you may recall had played once at Vinyl Club. Another one on my list is hard to categorize as a genre, but it's probably more on the experimental side. It's got elements of jazz, classical, footwork sort of thing, or post footwork. I've seen it categorized as. Try and explain that one. So the last one, Black Origami, I really liked, but it was a while back. She's done a few kind of EPs and collaborations since, but this one picks up on her last full album. It's quite intensive percussion, as you'd expect, and quite complex electronic arrangements. And there's collaborations on here, Philip Glass and Bjork, although they don't have a huge part to play in the tracks, but they're on there. Yeah, I find it probably quite accessible album despite all that. Talk about experimental, but yeah, really enjoyed it.
Great.
My last one, again, probably appears on a lot of end of year lists. It's Laura Marling, Patterns
Oh,
in
yeah,
Repeat.
yeah,
And see, this is the picture disc
yeah. Wow.
version of the LP, which has featured on an earlier episode of Four Tracks Good. For the keen-eyed amongst you, the artwork I think was designed by Laura herself. Yeah, so this is the first album from her in 4 years since A Song for Our Daughter, which I thought was her best album to date, really, and be hard to beat. But this new album maintains that high standard. It took a little bit of time for me to get used to the kind of minimalist lo-fi recordings. I think a lot of them were done in a house, in the
Yeah.
kitchen with a baby in the background and so on. But her vocals are still, just as amazing. Sweet classical guitar, strings. Yeah, it's all brilliant. Another gorgeous album from Laura
Yeah.
Marling.
I have come late to Laura Marley, and I'm just working up through
Right,
her first album onwards in order. So I haven't got to this one yet, but I know this is the one I'm really looking forward to having listened to.
right, right.
Quite a
Well,
nice
you'll
one to
enjoy
bring,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
nice one to bring us to a conclusion as well.
Yeah. So I have done some plotting of the albums that we've just chosen, just to kind of see how they fit. I'll share it with you and see what you think.
It's about 2020. You're going to share your screen with us.
I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. Is it going to work? That's the question.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any authority? Yeah. Right. Okay. What's happening here?
Right. So I
Oh,
took all of our albums that we selected, ran them through this amazing app, and it allows you to, first of all, it categorizes them all into different genres, which you can see on the left side there, and then it allows you to plot attributes of each of the tracks against various things here on the X and Y axis. So this graph here that you can see at the moment plots the energy of the track against the popularity of the track. So on the right here, the higher the popularity number, the more popular it is. So you'd expect things like Charlie XCX to be over to the right there. In fact, she's pretty much to the right, fairly high energy as well. Yeah, in fact, Charlie XCX has dominated the right-hand side in terms of popularity. And then there's a kind of a middle ground. We've got things like Shoo Shoo, Kim Deal, Aruj Aftab
okay.
in the middle popularity. But over on the left here, we've got things like Jin, a lot of Jin, Banana Gun, Keely Forsyth, Alva Noto, and so on. Yeah, so it's quite a nice spread, but you can see we're definitely towards the left-hand side of the popularity. So that'll explain why we don't get any viewers, Neil.
It probably is.
Maybe.
But it's about the quality, isn't it, as well? And
It is, yeah, it is.
then selling out. I mean, I think as data goes, that's reasonably useless, isn't it? But
I can plot it against happiness and danceability, and that just shows we're listening to quite miserable music, I think.
And we're not dancing.
And we're not dancing. So I think that pretty much says it all, Neil.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we just need to come back to this every year and then compare whether or not our choices are moving further to the right or not.
Yeah. But the good news is, in terms of the range of genres we've chosen, we've got everything from art pop to intelligent dance music, not just dance music, intelligent
dance music. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Guatemalan indie, Mexican.
It's a really patronizing way of describing it, isn't it? That you wouldn't call it intelligent indie or intelligent rock.
No.
But to call it intelligent dance music suggests that its default position is unintelligent or thoughtless. But hey,
it's very true. I think that's an episode in its own right. The genres, the labels attached to music. Yeah. Okay. But there's a whole list of moods there: a bit of chill, sad, danceable, happy, Yeah, all very good. Thought it was
Yeah.
quite interesting, but great set,
Yeah.
set of albums. I mean, really enjoyed that, and looking forward to the next year.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That was great. It was great to go through those albums, Gary. And if
Yeah,
anyone hasn't had a listen to any of them, then please do and let us know what you think about them.
yeah. Until next time, until next year, even.
Yeah.
4 Tracks good. Happy New Year.
Yeah.